Hello everyone, my name is Ashlee Carr, and today I'm going to lead you through part one of the data descriptive report and the data exploration report. I do have two team members who are going to be walking you through other parts of it, but this is just going to be an overview of My Educator's Checkpoint 5, and it's going to be used in conjunction with Word and Tableau. So just going to go ahead and get started by sharing my desktop. See, there we go. Okay, so here I'm going to minimize Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and open up Tableau as well as Word. I do have some of this kind of prepped, but basically a lot of it is going to be just replicating some of the steps. So in Tableau, we're going to go in and open a text file. So we're going to be using the Lending Club large CSV file. In this, you can see over here, you have the type of data. So this can be string, which basically means text, and then numerical. So it just kind of goes through all of those different types, as well as the field name. So we're going to start off by doing our data description report. The first thing you're going to do is list your features. So I went ahead and listed those out. So we have our loan status, loan amount, term, interest rate, purpose, EMP length, home ownership, earliest credit line, month since last delinquent, and then our DTI. And so the first thing you're going to do, you're going to go ahead and give each of these things a definition. So these are their definitions and their data types. So for loan status, it indicates whether your loan is in the term. So that's kind of the definition for that. Our data type is string or text. And then the variable type is label. So the loan status is the only one that is the variable type. The rest of them are, or that's a label. The rest of them are features. So yeah, just take this moment to go through and fill out all of these for the corresponding features. So for instance, interest rate is a cost in percentage format. A borrower pays for the borrowed funds, and then the data type is a decimal number, and the variable type is feature. So just take a second to go ahead and fill all of those in. Okay, so for this section, there are a few numeric values that we are going to talk about. So that's going to include like the count, min, max, medium, quartile, or Q1, Q3, missing percent, unique, mean, standard deviation, medium as well. I don't think I mentioned that one. And if you want more information on what these values mean or what they do, My Educator is a great resource to go check that out. But we're going to just go ahead and get started. So if you go into Tableau, you're going to go to the sheet view. And you're going to go ahead and drag out one of your features or your label. In this case, it's my label. Loan status. So I'm going to drag that to the rows. I'm going to start by going down to measure and changing it to count. Here you can just hover over the bar and you can see 167,608. So I went ahead and put that value here. So that's kind of how you find the count. But for some of these other variables, there's a faster way to find this information. So if you go to worksheet and show summary, you'll see right here, count 1, that's not accurate because it says 167,608. So you're going to want to go up to disaggregate the measure, and that's going to show you the correct count. And I'm going to go ahead and add in all of these values so that we can see everything. And you're going to want to move them over here so you can see everything. So this looks kind of funny, but this is, if you remember, a string data type. So because of that, it is going to have a lot of zeros, ones for like the values. So if you look here, you can see go ahead and fill in all these. The average is 1, minimum 1, maximum 1, medium 1, standard deviation 0. Definitely did that value wrong. First quartile 1, third quartile 1, skewness and kurtosis. We'll do those later, but it's kind of the information that you're going to want to copy for this portion. Of course, you will do the same for the rest of these. It is going to vary if it's not text. You will get different numbers, as you can see in some of these numerical data types. But yes, that's what you do for these sections. Okay, for this next part, we are going to find the unique values. So we're going to change the value to count distinct. We're going to re-aggregate measures. And then on the summary, you're going to see the sum is 7 right here. And that gives you the unique values. So we're going to go ahead and fill that here, the unique values as 7. And so then next we're going to find the missing and missing percentage. And so on this one, it is a little bit more complicated. We're actually going to use lone amount since it's a numerical data. It is a little bit easier to follow, so we're going to go ahead. Obviously, you can do this for string data as well. I'm going to go over here and we're going to start by disaggregating the data. Okay, and then we're going to change the measure to sum. Oh, wait. First of all, I'm not even on the right one. And move a lone amount up here. Okay, so it should be sum, yeah, and then disaggregated. Okay, perfect. So we're going to go down here and we're going to create a calculated field. So you're going to do that by right-clicking measure column and then create calculated field. We're going to name this missing lone. So you're going to type sum. What is this? If is null, and then lone amount, and then 1 else 0 end. Okay, so you're going to see down here it says the calculation is valid, so that's good. Apply and okay. Okay, so now you can go back to the data source and see update now, I guess. I'm using a numeric feature to show you like what is missing from the data. So you're going to go all the way to the end, missing lone amount, and the value for these are 0. This is very clean data, so it's not typical. But obviously, if the missing data is 0, the percent is also 0. So you can go ahead and fill that for all of the features. But this is not typical. But in this instance, there is no missing data. Yeah, so that's what you're going to fill in for that step. Okay, so moving on, we are going to go back to Tableau. So here we're going to pull the lone amount into the row, disaggregate the data. So it is disaggregated. And we're going to fill out all of the rest of the summary values. So standard deviation, mean, skew, kurtosis, just go ahead and add those things. So these right here, filling them in. Again, if you want more detail on what these variables mean, or not variables, numbers mean, you can always go to my educator. And then we're going to create a histogram. So we're going to go ahead and disaggregate. And we're going to use the Show Me tab up here to create a histogram. So there it is. Really keep it simple. We're going to name it histogram loan amount. So it automatically fills the title. Then you'll just copy image, press copy, and then under loan amount, go ahead and paste that histogram. So there it is. That is histogram for that. And then you're just going to want to redo or replicate, I guess, these this results for the histogram on the rest of the features. And that pretty much concludes the data descriptive report. Obviously, I didn't put all the histograms in, but that's what you would do for this report. I'm just showing you an example so that you can go through and do the rest of the values. But yeah, and of course you can make it smaller, format it however you want, but this is kind of the basis of the report. So next we're going to move on to a data exploration report. Okay, so moving on to our data exploration report. We're going to open a Word document and add the title in a second. But first we need to create a new sheet in Tableau. We're going to plot the loan status numeric and loan amount. Make sure you, start on data, make sure you put the loan status numeric in the rows. And the loan amount in the column. Okay. Yeah, so it automatically pulls up a scatter plot here. I've already added a trend line. Basically, what you're going to need to do is go through all of these different options and compare the R-square value. I have already done that and just determined that the, don't know why that's right there. I have determined the logarithmic to be the highest R squared value. So because of that, I am going to go back to data, create a calculated field. I'm just going to name this loan amount LN. And I'm going to type in LN, in parentheses, loan amount. In parentheses, very simple. The calculation is valid. Apply. Okay. All right. So I did that. And then you can actually see this in the data source if you go back over here. These values are right here. Going back to the sheet. We're going to note this in the report. So let's go ahead and go to Word. I'm going to copy this chart real quick. And I'm going to open up my data exploration report. Go ahead and make that full screen. So here you can see I do have some variables already in this, but I'm going to go ahead and paste this right there. Under loan amount, I do have a hypothesis listed, and I went ahead and filled in my linear regression equation and my R-squared value as well as my p-value. You can see that by hovering on the sign. There isn't really a way to copy it. You just have to type it in. So that is a little unfortunate, but that's where I got those values. So I have those listed right there. I do have a short summary as well that kind of explains the graph. One more thing that I need to add in is to go to the trend line and whoa. So go to the trend line, click right on it, and then describe trend line. You're going to want to copy this information into the graph as well. And paste it. So that gives you some of your information, coefficients, term values. It does kind of paste it a little funny, but all that information is here. It's loading. I do have that in some of my other, I kind of cleaned it up a little bit, but it doesn't super matter to kind of show these different values down here. These are the values for this data. But yeah, definitely like clean them up, format them as you please. Yeah, so you're just going to copy that in, and then you can list a hypothesis and a null hypothesis. I did that on some of these. If you want, you can also add in references if you want to kind of support your report with data, but it doesn't really matter. And basically, you're just, again, going to repeat those steps with the other features and create the scatter plots and enter this information, and again go through and find the trend line that has the highest R squared value. So that is part one of the data exploration report, and my teammates are going to take it from here and explaining the rest of this report. And this is for this part I did right now is the numeric to numeric data. So that's why I talked about loan amount and loan status numeric, because they're both numeric values. So yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start on categorical to numeric calculations. So the first one we want to do is this total received late fee to term right here. So first we'll go to Tableau and we're going to create our bar chart. To create the bar chart, you'll grab this term field and put it in your rows. And then you'll grab total received late fees and put it in your columns. And you're going to want to make sure you do your measure as average and not what it's originally set to as sum. So just make sure it shows average, and this will give you your bar chart. And you can see the average for 60 months seems higher than 36 months. So we'll see if that's significant or not by doing a t-test. So for the t-test, why we're doing a t-test first of all is because there's only two groups. There's 36 months and 60 months. So you would do a t-test and not an ANOVA. So going back to Tableau, you want to first create two new fields that just grab the total received late fees for that specific group. So to do that, you would go to Analysis, create calculated field, and then you would input this formula here. And it's basically just a simple if-then statement. So if the term is 36 months, then you would grab the total received late fees, or else it's null. And you would do the same for 60 months, which I'll show here. It's the same formula and just change 60 months. I'll show you what that looks like. So here, these are our new fields that we created. You can see for 36 months it's 0, and then in the 60 months, because there's no data there because it's null. And so if it is 60 months, then you get 0 here, and then you get null obviously in the 36 months. So going back you'll need another calculated field now. So again, analysis, create calculated field, and you would do this formula here. And where does this formula come from? It's this t value. So t equals the mean of feature 1 minus feature 2. And then the square root over the square root of the standard deviation of feature 1 squared over the total number of features, or I'm sorry, the total values of that feature added to this standard deviation of the second feature squared over how many values of that second feature. And so going back, this is what this looks like. Coded out, term total received 36 months. That's the field we just created with only the 36-month values. And then the same with the 60 months. Okay, and once you create that, you'll want to pull it onto the screen. And then we get 4.382. To get a p-value, you can either use the chart that was provided in the textbook. So this chart here, you look at the degrees of freedom. So we had well over 1,000 values, so we can just use infinity. And our value was greater than 3, it was 4. So we're into this range here. So the past 0.99999. To be more accurate, you can use an online calculator. And we get, if we plug in our t-score of 4.28 and a degrees of freedom of 1,000, our p-value is 0.0002, and that is significant since it's less than 0.05. And you can do the same thing in Excel by just using the equal t-test function in Excel. But that only returns you a p-value, so you don't get a t-value out of that. All right, moving on to our next calculation, we can do total received late fee, and you would compare that with home ownership. So home ownership has 4 groups, and that's why we want to do a one-way ANOVA. We want to create a chart that looks similar to this, and to do that, we'll do that in Excel. So starting with all of our data, we're going to want to look for total received late fees and home ownership. You want to highlight both of those columns and copy them into a new sheet, which I did here. Then you're going to want to filter them so you can just grab the data for each individual group, so that you grab this total received late fees for just own, for mortgage, rent, and any. So it's all separated out. And then to do the calculation, you need to go to data and then data analysis. So this is an add-on in Excel, so make sure you have that. And then you want to pick ANOVA single factor, click OK. Your input range is your new columns with all of the data separated into each category, each group. And then, so it's grouped by columns, and then make sure you click labels in first row because we have our titles in the first row. And then you can choose where you want to output it. And so this is what the output looks like. So you have a summary, and then here's the ANOVA, which is similar or exactly like this, what we were trying to get out. And here, so our F value or P value and F critical value. And because this P value is less than 0.05, we know that this is significant and that the means of these, the difference of the means is significant. And so you can do just this repeated calculation for all of the other categorical to numeric calculations.
Hello, I am Karen Goodwin. I'm in the Predictive Analytics and Visualizations course at Southeastern Oklahoma State University, taught by Dr. Jeffrey Risher. And this is my portion of the video for our group projects. for this particular session. I'm going to talk about category to category analysis in Tableau. At first, I want to draw your attention to a super helpful link. If you are in Tableau or have a Tableau account, it's super helpful to be able to go to the training videos as they update their software on a regular basis, as the community grows, basically as new things are developed. So some of the tips and tricks I found came directly from this location, and just thought you should be aware of that. All right, so category to category. These are those lovely moments where we have features that are not necessarily numeric to begin with. So in our particular example, we're going to talk about the loan status, and we're going to compare about the verification status. What is the possible prediction of the loan status based on whether it was verified, whether the employment amounts, salary amounts were verified or not verified. So all I did just now, hopefully in the other videos, you've already seen how to connect the data. So literally all I did was I grabbed the loan status from the tables section over here for our dimensions, and the verification status, dropped it in, and this cute little table popped up, but it's not very helpful. So how do we fix that? Well, first of all, we want to make this where it is a count. So luckily, there are some really cool ways to go about this. So if I take loan status and drop it on top of detail, then I should be able to click on this and adjust the measure to a count. So that turns it to numeric. And then I could do the same thing with verification. If we needed to do that, measure, count. This still looks kind of interesting over here, but not really helpful. So on the Show Me tab, click on the text tables. Click on that. Drop this back on top of our detail. Oh, my mistake. Drop it on top of text. See, this is what happens when you have students teaching. We don't know what we're doing yet. So here are our numbers. This looks great. It's lovely. Let's add a heat map just because we can. Over here in the visualizations under Show Me, the top right, this is a heat map. Beautiful. And now we can come in and add our totals, our grand totals. So we're going to put, we go to Analysis and then Totals, show the row grand totals, and we're also going to show the column grand totals. All right, so now we have a really cute contingency table or crosstab. But again, not super helpful yet. It kind of gives you an idea of what's going on, but there's not really any prediction happening here. So in order to get to the prediction, we have to create an expectancy table. Now, that's one of those things we have to build the pieces and components behind the scenes, but you're not actually going to see a visualization of it until we actually apply the information. So in order to create our expectancy table, we're going to have to create some calculated fields. So we need a count. We need to create a calculated field based on the loan status. So let's start with that. Over here in the Data tab, there's a very tiny caret near the Filter and the View Data button. We'll click on the down caret and choose Create Calculated Field. Now, I have actually already created this, so I'm not going to do this again. I'm just going to go in and show you how to edit it and see what the formulas are. But just so you know, when you're building it from scratch, create calculated field, you create your name. Now, my own personal tip is I put an underscore at the beginning of the name just so I can keep them together as I start working through my process. So, for example, we wanted to make this one the total number of loan statuses. So you would type that in. So I'm going to ignore this because I have already built it. And so our total loan status would look like. So if you want to go back and find that, find the title that you've created, do a left mouse click on the down caret, and then click on edit, and it gives you the formula. So what we've done for this one is the formula is window sum. This is the function. And please note that all of the functions have to be in capitals, capital letters. And then we're going to say count loan status. So legitimately just how many of them have the different loan statuses. Okay. And you click on OK. And we're going to also check the total verification status. We're going to do the exact same thing. That would be a create calculated field. I've already created it in advance, so we don't have to do that now. But I am going to go in and edit so you can see it. It's the exact same formula, window sum, count. The difference is this one is referencing the verification status field. Okay, so far so good. Now we also need to make sure that we have a grand total because, you know, again, we're creating an expectancy table. So we need to create a matrix that has all of this great stuff in here. So since this is a cat to cat, category to category comparison, I created the cat grand total. Again, calculated field. This one, the formula is a little different. It is total and then count of loan status plus the count of the verification status. Make sure that you've closed all your parentheses in there. And there is an extra step in this one. Now the others I kind of blew past. We did not need to worry about changing the default table calculation. In this case, we're going to click on the default table calculation, compute using, scroll all the way down to the very bottom, and it's super easy to miss, but click on advanced. And then from the partitioning screen, highlight verification status and loan status and use the right arrow to add it to the addressing box. And if you grab the wrong one, then you can highlight that and put it back in the other box. Okay, we can leave it as an automatic sort, hit OK. Deepest is appropriate, none is perfectly fine. Computing totals across all pages, fine. There's not really anything that we found that messes with that for this particular exercise. There could be moments whenever you do not wish to do that. So just keep in mind that that's there. Hit OK. Apply. OK. All right, so we've created the components for our expectancy table. So that's a good step. Now we have to actually figure out the expected count. This is the fun part. So you can go in, create another calculated field. This time, we're going to find the expected count. As I said, I created this in advance. So I'm just going to show the formula. It's an edit. And it is float. And float just indicates that we're using decimal numbers. And we're going to take the total loan status that we created a moment ago times the total verification status that we created a minute ago. Both of those divided by the cat grand total. Okay. There's two dependencies. That's also a good little check to see how this is working or not. And it should have two dependencies. It should be loan status and the verification status both. All right, so we hit OK. All right, great. So now we have the expected count. That's cool, but what do we do with it? This is where it's lovely. Take the expected count, drop it on top of the tooltip here in the marks card. And now when you hover over your table, we have the expected count in our pop-up. So it shows what the actual count was, the count of the loan status versus the verification status, and what the expected count was. Okay. We can see how well we did or didn't do here. I'm a little concerned that my numbers are not moving as much as I was expecting, but still, it's an exercise. by a student. So, take that with a grain of salt. Okay, so we've created our expectancy count. Now we need to find out our chi-square cell values. So yet again, another calculated field, okay? And we're going to do our chi-square cell values. And I want to point out, putting that little underscore in front of each of the names puts all of my fields, my created fields all together. Now in Tableau, there is a little equal sign next to these hashtags that indicate that it's a calculated field, but I prefer to have them all close together, especially when I'm going to have to be building one on top of the other. So that being said, for our chi-square cell values, the formula is square, and then open parentheses, float, because we want to talk about decimals, and we're going to count the verification status, and then we're going to take that count minus the expected count that we created a moment ago. That's what all gets squared, so make sure that that's where your parentheses are. You've got your open parentheses and your closed parentheses, divided by the expected count. Okay, we hit OK, and now we're going to do the same thing. We can take our chi-square cell values, drop them on the tooltip, just drag and drop, and now that also shows up in our pop-up when we're looking at our values here. Okay. All right, next step. Now that we've got our chi-square cell values, then we can talk about creating our actual chi-square. So chi-square, another created field, or calculated field, I'm sorry, said the wrong thing. Calculated field, edit, window sum, chi-square cell values. Okay. Now on this one, there is an extra little step. Again, we're going to affect this table calculation. So you've got your window sum, the chi-square cell values that we created a moment ago. Click on the default table calculation. Again, choose advanced. And we want to make sure that we have loan status and verification status in the addressing box. So the first time you run this, they'll show up over here in the partitioning box. Same thing that we did a minute ago. So for example, just to show how this works, you can click on one of these field names in the partitioning box and move it over to the addressing box. And then because I don't want this in part of our calculation, I'm going to move it right back. You can also resequence these by using the up and down buttons over here in the middle. In our case, I don't think that this even matters, so I'm not going to worry about that. Hit OK. Deepest and none, perfectly fine. OK. OK. So we now have our chi-square. So we're going to grab it, drop it on top of the tooltip, and there we go. We have a very cool little pop-up. All right, so bonus, I went chasing down some information about how to create p-values in Tableau. So in order to do that effectively in Tableau, we have to create the z-score. We have to find a z-score to make this work. So the z-score, what I did, we'll find out if this is accurate or not, but what I did in the z-score, created a calculated field, and I took the loan amount, the sum of the loan amount minus the average loan amount divided by the standard deviation of the loan amount. So of course, the loan amount is, we're talking about a whole bunch of loans. So every one of the data records has a loan amount in there. I did create a field for average loan amount, and I also created a calculated field for the standard deviation based on the loan amount. Okay, that gives us a z-score. I could not find anything that specified exactly how to calculate a z-score based on the categories. So that's why I resorted back to the loan amounts, because this is all part of the larger data set. So they should all still tie together. Okay, hit OK. once you have your z-score, then there is a lovely formula that you can find the p-value if you have the z-score. So the p-value, skip over here to the end here. Again, found this in the forum for the Tableau community, and it is the same formula, or runs the equivalent of the same formula that you would use in Excel. So this one is, let me see if I can expand this out. I do not think it will let me, but we have this exponent, 1/1 plus exponent, square root, pi, a whole bunch of stuff. I'm hoping that you can pause your video long enough to see what these are. And it's a very long formula, my apologies. But with that, it should calculate a p-value for each of these lovely little things. So with that in mind, we can take our p-value. Sorry, I double clicked and I should not have. P-value on top of the tooltip. Just for grins and giggles, we will put the z-score on top of the tooltip as well. And then whenever we look at our pop-out, we now have z-score values, we have p-values, we have chi-squares, we've got all kinds of great stuff, and a cool looking little video and visual here for our category to category analysis. So I hope this was informative and helpful. And again, wonderful tool. Go to the tableau.com community, and they've got some wonderful training videos and things that will cover all of the updates, as well as anything that you need to know beyond what we cover in our particular group. Thanks so much.